everybody. I'm Aoife O'Sullivan. I'm Causeway's Events and Communications Manager, and I'm delighted to welcome you all here today for the third event in our Digitising Construction Sector series. This series of events has been kindly sponsored by Invest Northern Ireland, and today's event is co-sponsored by Integrated Facilities Solutions. This series of events is designed to support leaders and professionals of the construction sector on your complete digital journey and to provide you opportunities to hear from experts in their digital transformation experiences, as well as have interactive networking opportunities to connect and chat with colleagues in the sector from across Ireland, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. Firstly, I'm just going to give you some very quick housekeeping. We are recording today's guest talks. We won't record the breakout sessions. These won't be publicised, but the key talks will be published on our Causeway channels after this event. I'd also like to advise, while you are all on mute for the beginning of today's events, this event will be very interactive. In between our three guest talks, we will also be putting you into two breakout networking sessions of about 20 minutes long. This is to give you the opportunity to connect and chat with others in this sector and discuss deeper your experiences of digital transformation and implementation. So I advise you, please be ready to turn your camera on and come off mute for this part of the event. Towards the end of the event, we will then recap on the breakout discussions, and there will be opportunities to ask questions to our panel of guest speakers and to respond to questions in the chat and invite participation from the audiences. Today's event is going to be co-hosted by our event sponsor Nick Tuberville of Invest Northern Ireland and Linda Scott of Causeway and Co-Clan. We will also have Q&A chats, as I mentioned, with guest speakers. So Causeway member and co-sponsor of today's event, George Harold of Integrated Facility Solutions, and also Q&As with Cathal McMullan of the Kane Group and Gary Kelly of Leica Geosystems. In addition to Nick and Linda helping to host today's events and George Harold co-sponsoring, I would like to thank the other contributors of this series of events, our valued Causeway members and partners. So John Hunt of Enterprise Ireland, Saffron Grant and Chris Grant of Digital Construction Skills, and Eugene Mullen of Causeway and Smith Scott Mullen Architects. They've all been instrumental in helping us plan this series of events and will be helping to facilitate our breakout sessions. I am aware we do have a mix of people here today from across Ireland, Northern Ireland and Scotland, from both construction and digital sectors, and some who are Causeway members, some who are not. You're all very, very welcome. For those who don't know what Causeway is, we are all about facilitating opportunities to connect professionals and businesses on both sides of the Irish Sea to explore collaborations and opportunities to boost trade. I'd like to take this opportunity to give a particular warm welcome to some of our newest Causeway members since our last event in the series who are here today. So Ian Beckett of Airtight Technology, Jeanette McIntyre of Indoglass, and Cormac McCravey of Beyond Tayshore. I'd also like to welcome Paul Whitnell from our partner organisation, the British and Irish Trading Alliance, who's also here today. So to kick off today's events, we are now going to pass over to co-sponsors and Causeway members, George Harold of Integrated Facility Solutions and Nick Tuberville of Invest Northern Ireland.
Guys, just to give you a warm welcome on behalf of Causeway. It's been a really great series of events, these last number of events. This is our third event, Digitising the Construction Sector, Information Technology. And I just wanted to give you a quick warm welcome. I'll leave it to Nick then to make the necessary introductions. I'll pass it back to myself.
That's great, thank you, George. Yeah, delighted. Invest Northern Ireland are delighted to be co-sponsors of today's event. You know, working with Causeway over the last number of months has been fantastic. Really dynamic group, an enthusiastic group. Everyone likes to participate, and hopefully all of our guests today will find today's event useful and educational. George, to sort of kick things off, why don't we talk about why owners of construction projects need digital information?
Well, I suppose one of the reasons that we joined Causeway, Nick, first of all, was to look at what programs were being put in place, and it's great, first of all, to be a member of Causeway. We find it an exceptional group. We find it an organisation that's helped us to flourish as a company, and it's been really good in terms of what we've done over the last couple of years and how we've met similar organisations. It's also put a focus on what we've done as a business in terms of what we see happening in the construction industry. And one of the big areas that we've seen in the industry is how owners need construction project information and digital information more so. One of the areas that we've seen a big focus on is why owners need this digital information. And that's always been a big focus for us as a company. When we started the business 20 years ago, we were always looking at how owners operate and manage and maintain these large buildings, these big organizations, without the proper information. And with the digital progression over the last couple of years, it's only made it more necessary that owners really require this digital information. First of all, the reason owners need digital information is because they control the CapEx, the operational costs. They've got full responsibility for all the funding for these big, large-scale projects. And then they take responsibilities for appointing design teams, construction teams, and managing the buildings throughout the whole life cycle. And that puts a big focus on necessary getting construction structured information. And it's getting structured information right from the very early stages, right from that pre-planning design stage, right through to construction, right through to handover and operations. And I suppose what we've seen is the fact that, especially through the whole pandemic and with the COVID-19, access to this structured information is becoming more and more important. What we've seen now in the industry is that because the industry we're in the construction industry, it's so necessary now that to have these digital implementation at the very, very start of when we're even looking at capital projects, looking to plan, looking to design these capital projects. One of the big focus for us also has been how owner-operators specify what they contractually put into their contract documents to ensure they get a proper digital implementation back right through all the different stages. You see what's happening in the industry over the last couple of years. And I suppose some of the side effects of that has been the fact that when we take responsibility for these buildings after construction, what level of information do we have to manage and maintain these buildings? And that has to be a key focus for anybody that's in this space. I think also the fact that when you look at some of the really tragic events that have happened over the last couple of years, like the Grenfell Tower, for example, and what's happened since then, and the responsibilities and the actions they've put in place also, when we went to look for the information, there was no information really there. They've done a number of reviews, and there's a huge big focus on where was the information and where is the information at the different stages. And I think as construction grows, and it's a huge industry, and making that digitally compliant through all the different stakeholders, from the operations teams, the design teams, the construction teams, is going to be really more and more so important. Also, the fact that we're now at a stage where sustainability is going to be so important. Sustainability in all different effects of how we manage and operate buildings, and having access to the right level of information and having that digitally compliant through all the individual stages to ensure that we have the right information to make it more sustainable from an operational point of view, from a resource point of view where the information is coming through, from the time that we spend and use to access the right information to how we design, construct, manage and operate these buildings is even more so important all the time. So that's a big focus from our point of view, and it's always been at the top of our agenda when we see this whole process of why owners need digital information. It's massive, and it's going to become even more important as we go further on.
Yeah, so you've touched on it a number of times. Then the implementation of digital technology within the construction sector is very, very important. But where should it start? Should it start with the owner operator? Should it start with the architects, the engineers, the construction firms? Should we be looking at bringing in software, hardware at a particular point? When does Internet of Things become part of the process? What's the starting point in terms of the implementation journey?
I think it has to start at the very start, Nick. When we're thinking about planning for buildings at that pre-design stage, like from what we see is that you've got big estates, big organizations, and then down to small capital projects, medium-sized capital projects. When do we start looking at the whole information process and the implementation of digital technology? And digital technology in construction and facilities management could be hardware, it could be software, but it all goes back to the information that's a requirement. And I suppose what we've seen over the last couple of years is that if we don't specify it or contractually put it into our documentation, on our construction projects, it doesn't tend to happen. It doesn't tend to happen. And what happens then is it relies on people thinking about what's the best process, how I'm going to do. So we've got some great digital solutions. We've got some really good standards. I know a recent standard that came out there is ISO 19650, how we manage our structured data right through all of those important stages through a project's life cycle. From each of the stages, from planning, pre-design, design stage, construction, handover, and operations. And people and teams have been putting a big focus on those standards. Now that we have the standards in the process, we just need to begin to employ them. And I think, like as an industry which is growing and is huge, and because we're lagging behind other further industries, that implementation of digital technology is so important. I think what I've learned over the last couple of seminars that I've attended and been involved in this particular series, Nick, is the fact that there's so much engagement, there's so much enthusiasm from our members, from people that have attended the different seminars, to really push the whole digital landscape in construction and FM, and which has been really very interesting from my point of view. And also the way that we've focused on this event to really push out that digital technology piece, which it's beginning to really resonate further again.
So, I mean, I suppose sort of what you're saying there is that, you know, if a client or a stakeholder comes to the design team without even having thought about digital, should it be the responsibility of the architects and designers to push back on them and say, go away and think about how we're going to employ a digital angle to this before we continue? Yeah,
Nick, you're dead right. Like, you know what I mean? You've got big stakeholders. You've got the owner who's going to fund the capital expenditure, the operational expenditure for these projects. You've got the design teams who are going to design these projects. You've got the construction teams who are going to build them, and you've got the FM teams and the operators who are going to operate. And we've heard this term before, this golden thread of information, and it has to start somewhere. But if it starts really at the start, and if all the main stakeholders are involved in focusing into that, and it's just awareness, and it's like the awareness that we're bringing to these events, it's making people aware that there is the standards, there is the processes. Like, I use my mobile phone on a regular basis, but I'm also being able to access different information in different buildings, different activities, different processes, and that real-time information about what's happening on different projects is so important. Now, if I didn't have that, I'm going back to paper-based process or just email updates, for example, which is not really overly helpful, but I need it more informative. I need that 24. I need to have access to information, especially when it comes to buildings, and especially what we've gone through, and the fact that from our point of view as a company, what we do is we host, manage, and maintain building information. So we provide access to people that own and manage their buildings, access to all their information. But the uptake in what we did throughout the pandemic was huge, because people couldn't actually leave their houses. They had to manage these buildings, but access to the information going to be killed. And again, this is just one small area, but it's how you amplify that out further. And especially, there's going to be a huge increase in infrastructure over the next couple of months, couple of years, that digital technology is really going to go hand in hand.
I think you know, you're hitting on a lot of great points there, and I think what I'm taking from that is that the owner, the designer, the builder, and the operator all have to have an equal say on how digital is going to be used, and particularly in the full life cycle of the building. George, we're going to have to. I'd love to keep going, but we're on a tight schedule, so I'm going to say thank you very much.
Thanks, Nick.
And then, by way of introducing our second guest, Cathal McMullan from Kane Group, I'm going to ask Aoife to play a short VT.
Music The Claridge's project required a full-service MEP delivery to manage the installation of quite complex and complicated services within a very confined site.
Kane Group's main challenges was to omit the risk of any disruption to the live hotel, to integrate the new mechanical and electrical systems with no disruptions.
Off-site fabrication was key to the success of the project. That relies heavily on good production facilities and processes and procedures with the facilities that we have in-house.
When we came on board, we carried out a point cloud survey, and this survey allowed us to make sure that our design was accurate for what we were going to install. Within the BIM department then at that point we kind of use it for space planning and coordination. That then moves into the prefabrication department, and they add the level of detail that allows it all to be made.
We take the drawings from design, we will prepare a cut list. Every weld here is tested. Then we bring it out to the spray shed and then it's brought into assembly.
From the prefabrication, then the point cloud surveys on site allow those prefab items to be manufactured here and put straight on the site without needing welding on site and without needing storage on site.
Kane Group achieved excellent communication through a cloud-based system which was a one-stop shop for both employees and the clients.
The Claridge's project was a very challenging but a very rewarding one.
From the very first site visit with the client, when they explained to us their vision and what they were trying to deliver, and when we saw what they'd already undertaken, we were hooked on the project. We were determined that this was the type of project that Kane can deliver and will deliver.
The end results speak for themselves.
Great stuff. Thanks, Aoife. Wonderful video there, Cal. Absolutely inspiring stuff there. Can you tell us a little bit more about the project and how using digital technology benefited you?
Yes. Well, good afternoon, Nick. The project is, as it said, and just it showed you on the small clip there, was Claridge's hotel, and just by way of a small bit of background, the client for this project and anybody involved or heavily involved in civil engineering will be aware of the project, where the client had constructed a 5-story basement beneath the live hotel. That these works were completed by the time that we arrived on site, and we were tasked with then relocating all of the main heating, ventilation, chilled water and water storage and heating facilities into the lower levels of the basement, so B-3, 4 and 5. So that was really the main scope of our works, was how we would integrate our services in those levels and tie them back into the main live hotel above with it. So say the client was aim for the project was to utilize the above ground space currently used for that type of plant for the more commercially viable space for their purposes, and relocate all of the plant and equipment really to below ground. When we had arrived on site, it was an extremely complex. Well, it's a centre of London location, obviously in Mayfair, and a live site environment, very congested and very restricted access for what was quite big and bulky equipment to get in and to 5 levels below ground. So it was quite a challenge the first day we turned up to look at the project. But as we're saying, it's that type of challenge that you were looking at to say, right, this is going to take all that we've got. This is going to take all the skills, and we're going to combine our digital and what our knowledge on that along with our design and in-house fabrication. We do a lot of off-site fabrication within the company, and it was going to take a combination of all of those skills to deliver this one.
Yeah, I don't think Claridge's would have been too pleased if big bits of switchgear were knocking over expensive Louis Vuitton trunks in reception.
That was made quite clear at the start that we weren't allowed to do that, so that wasn't an option. So they made that clear. Okay, so what pieces of digital technology did you use on the project, and what were the challenges in implementing it? Well, really, as I said, from the start when we arrived on site, the basement was constructed at that stage with it. So whenever it was clear that we were going to have to employ a lot of off-site to deliver this project. And in order to do that, the first step that we had to take was complete a digital scan of the constructed basement areas. So we completed a full digital scan of those areas. That then allowed us to transfer the data back into an as-built cloud for they're known as various different, but that's the best description that I have it. So it's really an as-built model of the building, and then that allowed us to then start to design to the actual dimensions of what existed on site, and it allowed it to tell very, very minute details of offsets and walls and ceilings and floors. And so because we were going to construct off-site, we needed to construct to that level of accuracy within it. So we had used the Leica systems for that, and that gives us extremely accurate digital scan, and then allowed us to, as I say, in our AutoCAD and Revit design, then we were able to draw our services in with the confidence of knowing that the model that we were drawn into was the actual model from site, that it wasn't a theoretical model or what we intended to build or anything like that. We were drawn into with the actual site confines taken into account. So then whenever we had completed that and completed our Revit drawings, which is the 3D spatial coordination of all the plant and equipment, then we engaged the virtual reality, and so we have a virtual reality hub within our office facilities here. We set up one on site, and that allowed collaboration with the client and with the various teams to then portray the message ahead of equipment arriving on site or ahead of any works beginning. Then it allowed us to do the collaboration and the talking as to, this is what it's looked like, this is the set out, will it work, what does it fit, and check between. So it allowed our on-site team, a planning team, to collaborate back with our off-site team in the fabrication area, and also the client's team then to come involved. So that was very big for it. And also using the same scan survey tools, then whenever we had agreement on the what we would the layout of what we would install, that allowed us to transfer into fabrication drawings and start to make on the off-site facility. While we were doing that, then we revisited the as-built model and then extracted from that fixing points, specific fixing and anchor points for all of the frameworks and all of the rigs that we, as we call them, of pipework and pump sets. And we were able to go ahead and then drill out the fixing points and identify each one of them for coordination of services as they arrived on site. So
fantastic. I mean, it sounds like you couldn't really have done the project without digital. You talked about a lot of things there: the Leica scanning system, the VR, the use of digital in fabrication, and the Revit systems. Absolutely fantastic. We're going to have to draw this section to a close now if we want to keep on time. So thank you very much indeed, Carl. And it sounds like you're the go-to man in Northern Ireland when it comes to digital implementation. I'm going to pass over now to Linda from Causeway and Co-Clan to introduce the breakout rooms.
Hi there, Nick. Thanks very much, and welcome everybody for coming, and thanks for coming along. Good to see another really good turnout for this event. So important moving forward. Okay, I am, as I say, Linda. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer and Head of Industry Engagement from CodeClan. CodeClan is Scotland's first and only digital bootcamp, and we train software developers and data analysis and do bespoke training for large companies looking to implement digital into their organization. So we're now going to move into our first breakout room. This will last about 20 minutes. Time does fly by. It seems like it's a long time, but we've always had really good discussions in the past. Try and take the first sort of minute or so to introduce yourselves, where you're from and maybe why you're here. And then we're going to, the first breakout is going to discuss experiences and insights. And we've got 2 questions we'd like you to consider when you're in the breakout room. So firstly, what have been or what do you foresee as the most significant hurdles to implementation of new digital tech in your organization? Second question, where have you experienced or where would you most like to see tangible benefits from digital technology in the workplace, worksite? So I think we'll now get moved over, you'll get split up, and there'll be a Causeway board member in each breakout room as well, which will keep you right.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, welcome back, everybody. I hope you all enjoyed your breakout sessions there. After the Q&A with Gary, there will be another breakout session, and then we will reconvene and we'll put the spotlight on today's guest speakers and welcome questions from the floor. If you're thinking about asking a question, either put the hand up tool or type it in the chat at the side. And I'll ask it to whoever you want it directed at, but do please think of some challenging questions for our guests. So welcome to Gary Kelly from Leica Geosystems.
Thanks.
You're very welcome. Just like to start today's chat by asking you a question about companies and their preparation for implementation of digital. How do they know if their IT systems are ready to adopt new digital tools?
It's a fun question, and it's one that we do get asked quite a lot. Apologies, I've got Nick on. You've got you on this screen here. I've got my camera over here, so we're lucky it's between the two. But there's no definitive answer. And I think quite often we get asked, and people expect us just to say, "Here's a set menu X, Y, Z," and there you are, digital construction. But it really depends on the different types of tools that you're going to want to adopt. So actually what we tend to find is sometimes it's better off not knowing where you are, but knowing the limitations of what you actually have. So one thing about IT is it's easy to add things to certain parts of infrastructure if we know what's missing. It goes the opposite way when we think that we have something, but then it can't actually deliver. So I know some of the examples earlier on, say, for example, where we're talking about cloud-based data and everything that sits within it. But a simple example of that is when we have customers that want to invest in cloud-based technology, but haven't actually got the internet or the broadband connection to fully facilitate this across the various different sites, which is quite an easy thing to resolve. But if you've already implemented the solution but haven't put the first step in, then it becomes a problem. So let's say one thing for us, if you've got ambitions to bring these things on, just basically put the brief foundations in there and prioritize building from the ground up, excuse the pun. Similarly, there's no point in having other systems if you're not going to invest in it and cost accordingly. So if you're going to adopt in digital, you need to understand where you are, but not be scared of where you need to get to in the future. And the reason why I say this is that myself, let's say, for example, my colleagues at Leica, we've actually been through the journey with a number of customers in the past. So where we know that where you have expertise or holes in your IT infrastructure, we've probably listened to a company like yours before and asked our development team to put these things in place. So if you need something like a cloud-based hosting solution, yes, we can help you support to put something on your own, or you can basically just bring a service that will take that pain and heartache away from yourself. And that's why when we're having these conversations, what we actually think about is everyone brings us into a conversation with a construction manager or an engineering manager, but we'd also like to have the IT people in there as well, because they can make or break the whole digital solution. And like I say, the key thing, I know it was actually touched on in a group breakout there, is that you need to have a plan. So if you've got a plan, then that's as good as whether we're going to know, because we understand where things will slot into place along that digital journey. So like I say, understand what you have, what we need to get to, the rest we can add as a company develops. And yeah, that's probably it.
Great stuff. Thank you, Gary. Next question. What are the mindset changes that might be needed in relation to IT, infrastructure, approach to cloud, and so on, that would support a successful digital implementation?
Yeah, I touched on earlier, I think, and actually, strange enough, Paddy raised it in our breakout session again just there. The hardest part is actually seeing the investment as an investment. I think too often it gets seen as something that sits on a balance sheet. It's there as an expense, but there's no kind of recourse given to return on that investment. So the fact is, IT infrastructure is seen as a cost to go out to put it in place, but it can save thousands of pounds across the scope of a journey. It can keep costs within limit. It can keep projects on time. It can reduce fuel costs, a whole load of other things. So do we count that when we bring it in? That's the first mindset change for me. The other thing is that it's feared. Digital change is feared. All change is feared, you know. But you've actually got the skills within. Quite often you're just not noticing them or bringing them to the party to kind of recognise. And if you bring these champions and bring people through and involve them in the project and the decision making, you'll have a digital platform that will work not just for your company, but will work for the people that work for you, as well. So you have to include these people in that strategy. They have to be involved in it, and it needs to be made simple. A lot of digital change, a lot of things that happen, is because you're going against the grain, and that's when it becomes slightly more difficult. So bring people into the concept. A lot of people, if they'll recognise quite quickly, if they're not embracing the digital change, then they will become part of the problem. The reason why we're having to embrace digital is because if we don't, we will end up obsolete in terms of where we sit. And that's the same for people's roles within. It doesn't mean to say the job's going to change, but just an extra skill set to basically come alongside and be involved in. And for me, the biggest one is patience. It's very important in construction because it doesn't happen overnight. The first few projects are always going to have a few problems, and if you put too much pressure on an immediate return, then the project's doomed to failure. So yes, construction, it's expensive. Yes, there's time delays. Yes, there's this. You just have to be patient, and then by the time you hit your third or your fourth project, everything will come good, and then you'll start to see the return flow in.
Very good. I suppose one of the ways that you could convince the finance guy that it's going to save money is that digital can really help cut down on perhaps some of the claim culture that goes on in the construction sector, because you're very definitely measuring twice to cut once by using this sort of technology. Gary, thank you very much. Some great insight there, and hopefully we'll get some questions from the participants later on. But I'd like to pass back to Linda again to open up the second breakout session. Thank you again, Gary.
No problem.
Hi, yes, we're about to go in our second breakout room. So discussion this time is looking forward. 3 questions this time. They are, what will a digital workplace look like in 5 years? What do you think will be the single most important technology for the construction sector? Will it need to be easy to implement? And the third question is, do you think the construction industry too fragmented to implement technology on a national scale? I think now we will get moved over.
Okay, and just to say, I've made the next breakout rooms a bit larger, so hopefully more stimulated discussion and more opportunities to network.
Thank you.
I'll just open the breakout rooms now.
Thank you.
Right, great stuff. Welcome back, everybody. Hopefully you had, tech problems permitting, had some interesting and varied chat in the rooms. Just for the benefit of people that maybe had different material because of how the groups were running, I'd just like to ask the rest of the contributors to just give me a few lines of feedback from the rooms that they were in. So, George, if we can start with yourself, please. You're on mute.
Sorry, guys. No, 2 really good breakout sessions. The first one, in terms of the insights, I think as a group, we all came together and said, look, the cost of technology compared to the benefits completely outweigh in terms of the significant uptake and the increases in productivity that we're going to have is going to be crucial. So that's was really kind of a main theme that was coming, and access to the information is going to be crucial also. Breakout number 2, really interesting, very engaging again. Again, it's demystifying. It's demystifying the whole language that we use in tech. Make it more understandable, engaging more people into the whole digital technology in construction and FM. Again, the increase in information is going to have an effect. More data centers, more increase on the national grid. So you've got to look at all the areas when you look at that whole big 5-year plan and what's ahead of us. So very engaging, really enjoyable breakout sessions.
Great stuff. Thank you, George. John from Enterprise Ireland.
Thank you, Nick. So look, I chaired the first session and then joined Chris for the second one. But just to recap, it's the first question that we discussed was, where do you see the most tangible benefits from digital technology in the workplace or the site? And there was quite a nice distinction that came out of our conversation. So that was the distinction between technology in the build process, so the designs, delivery, operation piece, and then the implementation of technology into the operations of the building that will support. So it's the ERP systems, the CRM systems, the financial systems, and interestingly, most people leant towards the digital implementation of technology inside the business than on the project. And as we know, for the last 10 years, it's all been about building information modeling and new process delivery and integration. And yet, we were talking about some of the challenges, but some of the benefits of this paper to data type transformation that we're all doing. A lot of that has been to get additional resilience in our businesses, most recently. But how we've just recognized that, chopping down trees isn't the way to go, to paraphrase one of your quotes, George. And then in the terms of the significant hurdles, this was, again, coming down to a few central themes as to what the problem is with implementation. And we all recognize I'm just too busy. And we recognize that today that's probably truer than ever. So most important is that vision of where we're taking people with the technology. And is it to a place that's safe, where their jobs and their roles and their futures are still employed? And is it a vision that they can see themselves a part of and driving real benefit? So I think having that vision in place to bring the people online, one of the key barriers and perhaps enablers of a digital implementation. So that's it from me.
Great stuff. Thank you, John. Saffron, over to you.
Yeah, so in terms of the biggest hurdles, the key theme was overcoming inertia, and that's with people and their willingness to change, the systems that you have to deal with. So if you're bringing in new digital tools, how do you make that work with the systems you might have been and processes you might have been working with for the last 30 years, or vice versa? How do you find like a hybrid model? And also your IT systems and hardware. So that was the kind of the hurdles, but the tangible benefits, the two key ones were taking tasks that take a long time, mundane tasks, and shortening them. And that's how that, adds tangible benefits, tangible value. And the other one being having real-time accurate information that helps with decision support and helps you make informed decisions. So based on what's actually happened, rather than what you kind of interpreting has happened, you can then change the direction of a job. You can make different decisions, and you've got, that's a tangible benefit there, being able to make informed decisions. And for the other one, I was in a breakout room with Linda, so I'll let Linda cover off on that one.
Nicely segueing over to Linda.
Thank you very much. Okay, first breakout room, hurdles, time allowed to deliver the project correctly. Maybe the people beforehand not quite aware of the systems that are in place, that they maybe need to come in 2 or 3 months before. It's important that the people that at the beginning of the pipeline, if you like, start the process with the correct sort of technology and advanced technology. The hurdle of sort of getting the messaging across that the technology is not as advanced as they think. There's a lack of leap of faith of putting trust into the computer. So again, a sort of messaging piece there. Second part, most like to see Keep sticking to the Zoom side of things. It's been a big benefit for business development and meeting wise, and more digital integration on sites. Second breakout room, workplace wise, what I'd like to see, what we'll see in 5 years from now is a lot more emphasis on the skills, but it'll be different skills, which we need to start implementing now. More connected, more mobility, and we think that we'll achieve as much off-site as on-site. I thought that was a really good point from David. What's important moving forward, integration of different systems. I think that seems to be something that's starting to become a problem already. Different apps being used, different systems, they don't all integrate, which then makes the system break. Make good use of, actually can't read my writing there at all. Fragmented, yes, we think it is fragmented just now and we will struggle, but we think the next generation will fix it because they won't stand for the fragmentation because they live in the world of technology working for them.
Excellent, thank you very much, Linda. And finally, Chris.
I'll keep it brief so we can get a bit of time with the speakers in, but essentially the hurdles is mainly people. I think basically we still like paper, we still like a bit of security of the bit of paper, and we're still a bit of a paper-driven society. We just need to get away from that, but really that's one of the big things. I think really managing expectations and the processes as well, from the implementation of new technology. And I think the second breakout group we just talked about 5 years from now. And I think, Linda, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's just around about the new generation going to come through who are just not going to tolerate this. I think as well, legislation is going to come in that's going to drive client behaviour, which I think is going to be quite important. John, when we talked about the building safety bill and things like that are going to come in, and obviously the climate targets. So I think we've covered all bases here anyway. I think for the group. That's been fantastic again. Great conversations. Not enough time, but it was great. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Not seeing a huge amount of questions coming through on the sidebar at the moment. Maybe just pass over to Gary, Carl, and George to just make a quick sort of closing remark on the biggest benefit that you and your organisation has had from digital implementation. So start with Carl.
The biggest benefits that we have had, well, there's a variety of them there onto, but really in the from the production and quality side of things, that's where we would say we have seen the biggest advancement into it for ourselves there.
That's great. Gary, I mean, obviously you're very digital based anyway, but what's the biggest benefit you've seen?
Yeah, so probably flip it the other way around in so much as not internally, because obviously digital solutions are good for business, but actually when we go to site, what we can actually change in terms of a mindset, in terms of I think what Cathal was able to show in that video, in so much as being able to actually go there, 3D document a site, then design it and make sure that everything rolls in first time. The fact that we know that saves a lot of time and effort and a lot of pain and heartache and is also safe. It's good for us knowing that that's what we're delivering to our customer base, and it continues to grow. So I would say that's probably what I take from what we do on a day-to-day basis.
Great stuff. Thank you, Gary. And George.
From our side of things, it's better information management on buildings, and we take great pride in the clients and the organisations that we work with and how we manage their information throughout the whole building life cycle. And that's a big focus for us. And the fact that we get this regular good feedback and how we manage better information on behalf of them, and the journey that we're taking them on in terms of how they're getting access to better information has always been a big key point from our point of view.
That's great. Thank you once again to George, Gary, and Carl. Very insightful. Great spending time with you chatting about the challenges. I'd like to thank everyone for attending on behalf of Invest Northern Ireland, and pass back to Linda to close the event.
Well, thanks, Nick. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for coming. Next event, I'm being caught off hook that I'm trying to approve a radio campaign that's going out tonight. I'll just be honest. So, sorry, Aoife, when is our next event? Oh, there we go.
The next event in the series is Collaborating in Digital Construction Solutions on the 16th of September. We also have just added to our diary another event on the 1st of July, a business and sport event, which will have guest speaker Paki Bonner. So please come along to that. It should be a really good networking event.
Great, thank you. Oh, and of course our awards dinner is coming up, which I'd highly recommend. As I keep saying, this is the only reason I joined the board, was for this dinner. I'm kidding. It's a great night, and I would highly recommend everybody come and apply for the awards. It's a great PR. We use it a lot at Code Clan, the awards for our PR. So I would highly recommend it. And of course our new membership benefits, which has been fantastic. Membership has really grown this year. I'm a huge fan of networking. I come from a chamber background, and I just think it's the best thing for your business. So if you are not a member, I would highly recommend that you become one and take advantage of all the benefits that are there on screen. This looks great. Thank you very much again for coming, and we'll hopefully see you at the next one or some of our other events. Have a look on our website for the list of all our events. Again, I know I'm biased, but I go to a lot of these events, and the Causeway events are definitely some of the best. So I would, again, highly recommend that you join every single one. Very good to see you all. Thank you for coming again.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks very much.
Thanks, everyone. Take care, guys.
Thanks, everyone.